This area here that we're walking on is directly in the path where the motorway is going to go. Our lines would have been here, German lines would have been up there. There would have been your trenches, barbed wire. The Germans was up there, and the minute a man poked his head up above the trench, they'd see it. Somewhere is your great uncle.
My interest in the First War stemmed from my grandfather, who was a vet. He was here in Ypres for several years, and I had a very good friend, a Lancashire Fusilier, who took part in the battle which began here. His most abiding memory was coming over a ridge where a platoon of his men had gone before him and finding them cut to pieces by a shrapnel shell. It was an anti-personnel shell. If it burst low, it would just tear a human body apart. In particular, he said that it was a very misty morning, very still, and this shell burst had just happened, and the blood of the men was in the air, and he said he could taste it on his tongue, and he could never shake that memory out of his mind. Every day of his life, that memory came back to him.
The importance is for you that you want to have the ground where probably your great-granduncle is still buried, preserved. My problem is not to spoil anything of what exists here, but as a citizen, I feel the necessity, the absolute necessity of building a road, a proper motorway from Ypres to the seaside.
The JA-19 action group started some 8 years ago. When you come from Brussels, suddenly the highway stops here. And now we are heading on local roads who are not designed to have this kind of traffic. Every hour we have between 900 and 1100 cars and or trucks. This means every 3 seconds there's a car or a truck passing by. My daughter was hit by a car in Brillen nearby our house some years ago. So it's really a dangerous spot here. We simply have to have this extension to the highway to have safe roads in Brillen and the other villages.
I fully understand the necessity to develop Ypres. However, one of my fears is, at the same time as there is this large upsurge in people visiting, wanting to find their family's history, at the very point in which that is attracting tourism into the town, things like Pilkin Ridge are being tarmacked over.
I've been studying these reconnaissance photographs for just over 4 years, and these tell you precisely the truth of the physical nature of the battlefield. This is a 1916 panorama looking in the direction of Passendale. In the centre of the photograph here you can see Passendale Church on the skyline, and looking out through the windscreen you can see Passendale Church in exactly the same position on the skyline today. And just in the foreground here we've got Track X Cemetery. These poor devils obviously didn't get very far. They would have climbed out of the trenches exactly where this car is and attacked across this field. Also, on April the 22nd, 1915, the first gas attack took place here, and that was a cloud of poison chlorine gas which was released from cylinders in the German front line just over the hill here. So it has a sort of a double symbolism, this landscape.
When the shells used to come over, they used to fill some of them full of gas, mustard gas. And as long as the wind is right, the gas flew in the air everywhere.
All of a sudden, shells started coming out, gas shells. and we were told to put our gas masks on. Well, gas masks in those days were those funny things you put over your head and you had a grip on your nose.
Of course, your mates, I never saw them anymore. They had to go to hospital, didn't they? Eh? And only lived about 3 days.
We know that approximately 1.5 billion shells were produced and 66 million shells contained a toxic agent. The problem is that even though these shells are 80 years old, they are still very dangerous. So the explosives inside are still working, the toxic agents are still working. Every year we have at least 250 tons being picked up here in Belgium. If they extend the A19, it will be extended really on top of the front line with the digging being done. We expect a lot of ammunition to be found during these works.
One of the most extraordinary things about this area is that the fighting was completely static for almost 4 years. And what that has led to, because of the rain of shells, which were almost constant during that period, is a layer beneath the topsoil and above the clay beneath, about 1 metre wide, which is just solid metal. And it extends all the way across this battlefield.
A barrage of any kind is something that's almost indescribable. The noise is so great, and the different, shall I say, frequencies of all the shells and the sounds of the different kinds of missiles that are going over. It's bewildering. It's more than deafening. It seems to deafen the very soul within one.
Their artillery never stopped. The shells drop, they'll cut your ruddy head off if a bit hits you.
Some men were so overcome by it they couldn't contain their emotions that they were, I've known them gibbering at the bottom of the trench, unfit to do anything at all.